Okay, good morning. This hopefully is a video that's going to be going to both my class and Miss Merriman's class. So this is a book study that I always do at the end of the school year. It's a really fun way to be reading some really good books, but looking at them in a whole nother way. So I call this my Caldecott um, book study. And what Caldecott are books that get awards, and I have an example of a Caldecott book. It's called Extra Yarn, and I can see that on this there is a medal, and this has gotten a silver medal. And a Caldecott award is an award that is given every year to books with really good illustrations, and illustrations means pictures. So one of the things that I've had students do in the past is that we read really good books, but we look at the art. And we analyze the art looking at elements of art. And so what I have here is I have some posters that I'm going to go through. There are 7 of them. And my guess is that a lot of this, you're going to be like, oh yeah, I get this. So first of all, I'll just be going through and showing you the different posters, discussing them a little bit, and then I'll be trying to go back and reread this book, Extra Yarn, and be thinking about these elements of art as I look at these pictures and read the story. So the first one, obviously you can see, is something that has to do with color, okay? So what I'll do is I'll quickly just go through these, identify the elements of art that artists use to convey meaning, okay? And again, you're gonna look at these and go, oh yeah, I get this. And then I'll go back and discuss these. So obviously the first one is color. Okay, that makes sense. Artists use color, okay? Then if we go to the next poster, we see something that's called value, okay? And again, I'm just showing you these real quick, and then I'll go back and review them. The third element of art is texture, okay? The fourth element of art artists use is line. The fifth element of art is shape. The sixth is form. And the last one is space. Okay, so let's go back and take a little bit more look at these. All right, so obviously the first one is color. So when we are talking about color, we can be talking about warm colors. We can also be talking about cool colors. And what I love about these posters is that the information is right on there. We can also be talking about primary colors. So primary colors are red, yellow, and blue. And if we mix primary colors, we can get secondary colors. So for instance, we can see red and yellow make orange. Now, a lot of us already know this, okay? But it's good, this is good information. We can also look at how colors are arranged. But again, if I was looking at a book, I might notice, oh, all the colors in the book are warm colors. Or I noticed all the colors in the book were primary colors. Or I might notice that in the book, the colors that are used are a mixture of primary and secondary colors. Okay, so it's just a way of looking at stories, because we often look at stories and just look at who are the characters, what is the setting. But now we're going to be doing that and looking at the pictures. Okay, let's take a look at another, is this idea of value. So when we talk about value of illustrations of pictures, we're talking about the lightness or darkness of a color. So for instance, we can have things that are just colored very lightly, to things that are colored very dark. And if we're talking about that, we're talking about the value, okay? And we can change the value by how hard or how soft an artist colors, but look at also they can do it through these other techniques, hatching and cross hatching and something called stippling. Okay, we can also, when we're talking about value, this right here, this circle up here is a very flat shape. Okay, there's nothing drawn on here to make it look like it's coming out of the page or 3D. This too is a circle, but if we look at this and see how it's drawn, it is drawn so that it looks 3D, that it looks like it's coming out of the page. This, when we're talking about this, is the value, okay? So again, to recap, we've talked about color and we've talked about value for illustrations. Let's keep going. Now this next one is really fun, texture. Obviously, when we're drawing something, it is just 2D, meaning it's not real fuzzy, but sometimes the way things are drawn make it look like it's really soft or really spiky or like it's just sharp, and that's the texture. So the way something actually feels. So if it looks like if you were to touch the painting, that it might be smooth or bumpy or rough or fuzzy or pokey, you're talking about the texture of something. So let's look at some examples. We can see here, this is an illustration, but the way that it's drawn, it looks just smooth as glass. It looks like if I were to touch that teapot, that it would feel like metal. Well, obviously, it's not metal. It's been drawn to look that way. And the same with this bear. This bear, if we were to touch that painting, it would feel like we would be expecting to feel the fur, but obviously we're not going to feel fur, but it's been drawn that way. And then if we look at this, these are just two-dimensional drawings, but it looks like that it's actually pointy and pokey. So again, this is just texture. I love that. I love that there are artists that can draw this way. Now, this next one is line, okay? So this idea, a path that is created by a point moving through space. So we can have wavy lines and horizontal, vertical, spirally lines, zigzag, thin and thick. All this has to do with line, okay? And let's take some look at some pictures. Here is a picture that's just been drawn with lines, but it creates movement. So isn't that clever? I love that. I love that the artist has that ability, just using line to create something that looks like it's moving off the page. So we can also think about lines can be expressive, okay? So if you use line, it can express emotion or a feeling. So an example, a vertical line, one that's going up and down, can be strong and powerful. A broken line down here can indicate transition or movement. Anyway, this is always that line can help create a type of mood when we're looking at a picture. Okay, let's keep going. Shape. We all think about shape when we think about illustrations. So are they regular geometric shapes? Circle, triangle, square, or what is that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 sectagon. So a shape is a two-dimensional enclosed space with boundaries. So it's not open, okay? We can look at this painting and look at this, it's all shapes. I love that, okay? So, so interesting, a painting just created by shapes, but look at this one down here. There's shapes in here, but it also, I can see that there are lines. There's all kinds of things going on here. So we can think about drawings, paintings, and maybe there are shapes that are used. And then look at this, guys, down here. This is very interesting. This right here, there's something that's called implied shape. meaning these look like they are circles, but there's like a bite cut out of each one, and we can see right in the center, it looks like a triangle. But there is no triangle that's actually drawn. It's called an implied shape, that our eyes see a triangle, but it's not actually drawn. But again, this artist used shape to convey this idea of triangle. And then we can look down here that we can have free-form organic shapes that are not a geometric shape like a circle or a rectangle, that they're just kind of irregular. Okay, so this kind of looks like a paint splat, but it's still shape. Now, I'm going to tell you, to be honest, the next couple of posters are ones that I'm not as familiar with. So I'll go through those, but again, these are more uncomfortable for me because I'm not as familiar with this, but that's okay. Okay, so we have form, and then there is space. It's the form one that, to me, when I look at it, it's like, how is this different from shape? But let's take a look. Form is a three-dimensional object which encloses volume. It is height, width, and depth. So if we take a look at these, we can see that this is a square, but the way it's been drawn, it looks 3D, so we would call it a cube. Again, this is a circle, but it looks like it's 3D, so we call it a sphere. Here we see a triangle, but the way it's been drawn, it looks like a cone, kind of like an ice cream cone or a cap. And here, this looks like a rectangle, but again, the way that it's drawn, it looks like a cylinder, like a can. So when we're talking about form here, we can talk about things that basically are drawn to have a 3D shape. Okay, so again, and this is something that kids will look at drawings and go, wow, it looks just lifelike, it looks so real. When we're talking about that, we're talking about form. Okay, so let's keep going. Then our last one has to do with space, and space has to do with what we it says the area around, inside, between shapes or forms. Okay, so let's take a look at this. Again, this is a little bit harder for me to talk about because I'm not an artist. So again, this is one that I need a little bit more work in, and that's okay. Okay, this is a place for me to grow a bit. When we're talking about space, we sometimes are talking about, if we look at this again is just a piece of paper that it's been drawn on, but it looks like the pencil is coming towards us. So, and this takes a lot of skill to be doing this. So this idea of using space to draw that, okay? And so I'm gonna stop here because you guys can read this beforehand. Or read this after. So what I'm going to be doing is that I'm going to be reading a book, and as I read it, I'm going to be thinking about these 7 elements. To be honest, I'm probably going to be talking a lot about the simpler ones, the idea of color and value, texture, and line, because those are the easiest for me to talk about. But some of you who are really good artists and maybe have thought about this, as you are thinking about the art, you might get into more of these ones that were harder for me, okay? So I'm gonna stop here, and I'm gonna be reading a story and then talking about it as far as using these elements of art. Okay, I'll stop there.